So Tanvi, recently
Uh-huh.
CMDFW, we participated in a vast interfaith program.
Mm-hmm.
It was called Sharing Sacred Spaces, where we'd go to different religious institutions. And one feature at each of these places was the congregants, some of them would give testimonials
Okay.
where they would talk about their faith
Mm-hmm.
and how they got into it, what it means to them,
Mm-hmm.
how they serve, all of this. One salient feature I saw in all these places is they would say, when I became a Jew, when I became a
Mm.
Christian, when I became a Muslim.
Okay.
Meaning, just by birth, it wasn't that they were that religion. It's
Yeah.
when they decided consciously that this is my identity.
Okay.
So, my first question for you today is, when did you decide to be a Hindu?
I think we were just born into it. There was no moment where I was like, I decided or I changed.
Are we ever encouraged in our religion to have to choose at a certain point that this is what we are? Or is it just we're born into it all the time?
No, I think born into, and then just the way that our culture is and our parents raise us, it's very much something that we do every day or every week. Like you go to Balwihar, you go to the mission. It's like you don't ever make a choice.
Are you really embracing an identity when you don't choose to be that? Because think of other
Mm.
identities we have,
Okay.
whether it's the way our politics and how we vote,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's what we determine to be our national identity and how
Mm-hmm.
we align.
Mm-hmm.
These are all conscious choices that we make.
Yeah.
Why not our Hindu identity?
Yeah.
So then, do you feel like that has to be a choice made at a certain point? If so, when would you say that you kind of made that choice, even if you weren't conscious of it?
I think for me, it would mainly be continuing to keep coming to Vinchin Mission because I think a lot of people just fall out at like a certain age, maybe like college and stuff. They decide to not keep coming or they have other activities. And for me, it's like, no, I want to keep coming. This is a part of me. This is part of who I am, my culture, I want to keep doing the spiritual development.
Because what I'm seeing from high school and college in the
Mm-hmm.
mission is, on average, we graduate from this center alone
Mm-hmm.
close to 70 Balvihar kids
Mm-hmm.
per year.
Yeah.
And nationwide, then, that easily comes out to be close to 1,000 children every
Mm-hmm.
year. But you look at how many of them become active chicks. Not
Mm-hmm.
that chick is a numbers game,
Yeah.
but you look at how many of them become active chicks.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe out of that 1,000 graduates, it's maybe 100 every year
Mm-hmm.
nationwide.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very low batting average.
Mm.
Either we're not getting it across how important it is, or are we not deliberately choosing when to be Hindu? That could be something that falls in there.
Mm-hmm.
There's one workshop that I often do with
Mm-hmm.
high schoolers, chicks, and adults,
Yeah.
where we look at what are 7 different elements
Okay.
that contribute to my Hindu identity.
Mm-hmm.
So these 7 elements are religion,
Mm-hmm.
culture,
Mm-hmm.
heritage,
Mm-hmm.
upbringing, fear,
Okay.
pride,
Mm-hmm.
and politics/media.
Okay.
That if we make a matrix, these
Yeah.
7 elements are what contribute in different ways to my Hindu identity.
Okay.
Now, if we go through them in our generation, and I know
Mhm.
you'll laugh when I say our generation because you're like 10 years younger and you make me feel bad every time,
Mhm.
but allow me to just say that here. Our
Okay.
generation,
Mhm.
which of these do we hold on to
Mhm.
in our Hindu identity?
Okay.
Let's go through them then.
Okay.
Religion.
Mhm.
Do we do Hinduism as a part of our identity?
I don't think so.
Why
I
not?
think so. It's just something we see a lot of, like it's too ritualistic. We don't understand the meaning behind it. Why would we do this? Why is it important? It's something that we let go of very easily. That's an aspect that we don't really want to hold on to.
Because one thing I've heard people say is, even if on a daily basis,
Mhm.
if sadhana is not a constant practice,
Mhm.
at least when samskaras are observed, like a vivaham samskara,
Yeah.
like a wedding ceremony,
Mhm.
or when it comes to upanayana,
Mhm.
the child inducted into this knowledge of being twice born,
Mhm.
akshara abhyasa, learning alphabets for the first time, anna
Mhm.
prashna, eating solid food for the first time.
Mhm.
These are all those samskaras that still keep the edifice of the religion alive.
Mhm.
Is our generation keeping up with that, as far as you know?
Debatable. I think some people are, but I think again, it's like we change things to fit to our convenience. Be it like marriage, be it all these other ones. We kind of change them and pick and choose what we want to do. Like we talked about last episode, getting rid of the kanyadan. We don't want to do it because we don't understand the meaning. So why would I do it? Why would I do something that's giving away my daughter, or it's very, what's the word?
They say it's regressive,
Regressive. That's the word.
is what they wrongly
Yeah.
assume it is.
Mhm.
Right, so religion, we're saying, is not
Mhm.
something that's part of that Hindu identity
Mhm.
for us. Not really.
Yeah.
Culture. Culture can be everything from food habits
Mhm.
to looking at different art forms,
Mhm.
Bharatanatyam,
Mhm.
Kathak, or
Mhm.
Carnatic, or Hindustani music, things like that.
Mhm.
Our generation grew up in the West here.
Mhm.
Is that a part of our Hindu identity culture?
I think that is definitely having those Garba meetups when it's like Navratri time, Diwali meetups, dancing. I think that we've held on to pretty well. And I think our parents have really pushed that a lot on us.
Because many parts of culture are more, quote, fun
Mm-hmm.
to practice than
Mm-hmm.
religion.
Yeah.
That's something that is staying alive.
Yes.
And I'd say much more than any other part of the world in the West,
Yes.
that is really staying alive
Mhm.
then. All right, we go religion, culture, upbringing. Now, this is
Definitely.
subjective.
Yeah.
How is that Hindu identity bound?
How strict they are, what food we eat at home, our values, like how we dress. I think so. In my family, that's definitely been kept alive.
Because I look at second generation having killed kids of their own,
Yeah.
like people like us born and raised in the West.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at the parenting styles.
Yeah.
It's really fascinating to me
Mm-hmm.
because it's not like the previous generation where in some families
Mm-hmm.
you come home and you say, "Hey, I have a boyfriend or girlfriend." The parents
Oh, yeah.
they
Freak
freak out
out.
completely.
Mm-hmm.
So they were more lenient on that.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, however, that strictness and not letting you go out late with friends when all
Mm-hmm.
the other friends were out, things like this. This
Things
is
like this.
Indian household stuff.
Yeah.
That's why, to a large part, you have kids who are in professional fields like
Mhm.
medicine or law, engineering, were superstars because of that upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we're going to see that same kind of achievement for the next generation because of the parenting style.
Yeah, I think that's something I wouldn't do with my kids personally.
We
so.
say that, but like, how far are we going to, you know what I mean? To
Yeah.
expect that same kind of accomplishment as this generation while not putting the same parameters and strictness,
It's not gonna happen.
it's not a combination that's really going to work right
Mhm.
there. And upbringing is different from person to person right
Mhm.
there. So we have religion, culture, upbringing, pride.
Is that religious pride or like pride for your country or proud to be Indian?
What do you want it to be? Pride to be a Hindu. What does it encompass?
I think proud to be Indian is definitely something that I can say. Me, my friend group, we're like, yeah, we're Indian. We're proud to say that. We love our country. We love where we come from. Proud to be Hindu. I think with the political climate at the moment, it's really hard to say that and not get any kind of backlash.
So it's contingent still on validation from externalities based on what other people say.
Unfortunately, I think so.
Like during COVID,
Yeah.
there was a calendar that IIT, I think Kanpur,
Mhm.
or one of the IIT schools made
Mm-hmm.
on Hindu knowledge systems.
Uh-huh.
So it would be, for instance, January would
Mhm.
be Hindu physics,
Mhm.
with a quote by Albert Einstein or Oppenheimer talking
Mhm.
about how great Hindu idea of physics is.
Mhm.
Or there was one on Hindu economics, one
Mhm.
month. And it's a quote by Mark Twain
Mhm.
talking about the greatness of the Hindu economic system.
Mhm.
Another one on ingenuity and industry in
Mhm.
ancient India. And then a quote by Henry Ford talking about how great it is.
Mhm.
This was passed around on WhatsApp University ad nauseum,
Mhm.
and I get it in 3 waves.
Yeah.
First wave is like immediate people that I know that send it to me. Second is anyone that finds anything Hindu or Indian related, they have to send it to
Send
me.
it to you.
That's the second wave 2 weeks later.
Uh-huh.
And there are those that were like hibernating during this time, and then they get it later, so then they send it to me then. So I got it in 3 waves. So each time I'm thinking about
Yeah.
looking through and just thinking about it, the pride that people had was when the white person who's famous in there says
says
that
something.
Hindus or Indians are great, then we feel pride.
Yeah.
We don't feel pride inherently looking at our own Shastra, or we'll doubt what's there. But the moment we say, oh, scientists found that bridge that
Yes.
goes from Bharat to Lanka,
Yeah.
therefore it's true.
Yeah.
Man, your Shastra said it. It wasn't cool enough then and true. It only has to be validated by the West, and then we feel that way.
Yeah.
So like that, what are those things that we're inherently proud of as Hindus, like you personally, that's not contingent on some external validation?
Celebration.
Okay.
I think the way that we celebrate things, the way that I don't know. It's actually a really tough question.
It's hard to answer.
Yeah.
For me, I feel pride when a Hindu does well in the world.
Okay.
So every
Yeah.
year when the spelling bees happen,
Yeah.
it's always an Indian or Hindu,
Yeah.
invariably Indian or
Uh-huh.
Hindu that wins.
Mhm.
Even if it's not an Indian or Hindu. This year it was someone from my hometown of Allen, Texas.
Mhm.
And I felt that emotion in my heart. I was like, man. Or Australian Open, okay? Nishesh Basavareddy. took a set off of Novak Djokovic in the first round.
Mhm.
I was up at 4 a.m. watching that. I got emotional, man. I almost teared up watching that. This is someone from my home country, took a set off the best player in history. So those are superficial at best, though.
Yeah.
Those aren't really Hindu related. What are those Hindu moments that we find to be proud of?
I don't know. Actually, that's really tough. That's something I can't answer.
The closest it comes to for me is this happened. Ram Janmabhoomi Pratisthapana happened in January a couple years ago. Later that year, Vishwa Hindu Parishad USA had a replica of the murti that was used for the sthapana. They had the murti go around to various temples all over the world, and the akshata that was offered to Ramlala Bhagavan in Ayodhya was taken around to the world
Oh, wow.
and offered.
Yeah.
Chinmaya Sakit, we had the great blessing of having that happen. We got the announcement 2 days before. We sent it out to our congregants. On a work day afternoon is when the puja was. We got about 250 people that came to Sakit for that. That moment galvanized that many people, and to receive that akshata from the birthplace of Bhagavan Ramji himself, that I think is the greatest day in our Saket's history. That moment I was like, man, I am proud to be a Hindu for the practice of you see what it draws.
Yeah.
Right? I try to find other moments like that. Few and far in between.
Yeah.
Religion, culture, upbringing, pride, fear. How does fear come into Hindu identity?
Yeah, fear of being accepted, fear of being politically right or wrong in this climate. Like, are you going to face backlash? Is something you say going to be taken in the wrong way? Should I even tell people I'm Hindu? Does that automatically put me? People, will you just assume that you vote a certain way? Or I think it's just politically, it's a very tough space to be in at the moment.
Were you facing this fear more growing up in New Zealand or when you moved here to Texas?
Oh, definitely Texas.
Why? What's the difference here?
People are very, very passionate here about politics and what they believe in, I guess, to the point where if you don't agree with them, you are wrong and they are right and you're just an evil person or you're not a good person or whatever. They believe that what they believe is right, and that's it.
I feel like social media kind of makes that even worse. Not just in a political sense, but anytime we have an opinion, we find a bandwagon on social media to jump on with that. At the same time, we're judged hardcore for it too.
Yes.
For something so small. But at the same time, a belief system or the way we do things, this goes back to culture, is indicative of so many wider things. Like all the friends and chicks that I know, I think you have one of the most fascinating professions. Okay? Tell us, what do you do? What do you do for work?
I'm a jeweler.
What does that mean?
That means I design engagement rings. I help people pick their diamonds, pick their different heads, different shanks, and we design engagement rings.
Heads and shanks sounds like a weapon.
No, it's the parts of an engagement ring. The part where the diamond goes is the head, the shank, the band, different wedding bands, and we design the set. And then we place a custom order.
Wow, you sound like you're marketing yourself. When it comes to that, though, there are different styles that people have. What does that tell you about the person? Let's have some fun here. Based on the different styles they order, what does that tell you about the person?
Right now, everything is just simple, plain, because that's what's trending online. You get a few people that are into very art deco. They're most probably vintage. They probably grew up seeing their grandma's rings. We have a lot of people that want weird cuts like Marquise, because Selena Gomez has it. A lot of what's trending on social media, cuts that we haven't seen in years. Because I started in jewelry when I was 16.
I didn't know she was engaged, by the way, Selena.
She got engaged.
Wow.
She got a Marquise. I had never, ever seen a Marquise in all these years in jewelry. And
I'm going to nod like I know what that means.
Like an oval, but a pointed oval shape.
So not an oval.
Not an oval, pointed. No, it's coming
Okay,
back.
so Marquise and all these things.
Everyone wants a Marquise now.
And the general accepted thing is what? You have to spend 3 months of your salary on the ring?
I mean, you'd hope so.
That's what I hear. That's what people say. Now, just in that, there was a cultural passing down from generation to generation of style and how things are done. Societal expectation of a certain kind of ring
and
or in size, or else you feel unloved or it's not cool to show on social media.
Yep.
This is nothing but cultural identity right there. And we take so much time to put that into something. I'm not going to use the word insignificant, but as common as giving a ring. But then when it comes to an identity that's religiously based, that seems to be in the back of our minds. Is that a problem?
I guess so. Seeing it in that perspective, yeah.
So is it that
Yeah.
we have to sell Hinduism a certain way to make it mainstream and cool for our own people? What do we do?
I think so.
Now, one more factor in this whole thing is heritage.
Mm-hmm.
Bharata is the homeland. That is the origin of our Hindu religion. That's
Mhm.
undisputed. Bharata is more of an idea for us than a location in many ways. Do you feel that Bharatiya connection growing up in the West?
Yes, I think my parents did a very good job of making sure we had that connection. We got taught a lot of history, even though we didn't in school. We would come home, we got taught. We would go back very often. Language was never a barrier for us. They made sure that we learned the language. And so, in that way, we built a lot of pride. We built connection because we were always there. We went there every year on holiday. We knew how to speak the language. We knew the history. We are like, yeah, you know what? I'm proud of this.
I underestimated how much language meant
Mm-hmm.
in this whole identity. I just thought it's something that's naturally passed down.
Yeah.
But I have cousins that,
Mm-hmm.
through no fault of their own, they were born in the 70s or 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And so being different then was really, really tough to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
So their parents never taught them their home language, their
Mhm.
native language,
Mhm.
right? Only English. So I see at family reunions even, they're not able to keep up with the
Yeah.
casual conversation that's going on.
Mhm.
Someone will make a joke and my brother and I will laugh.
Yeah.
And I look at these guys and there's no reaction. I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, they don't understand. Like, it's
Yeah,
sad to
it's
see,
sad.
but that's the circumstances that they're placed
Mhm.
in. As far as heritage, though, I don't know. I didn't really feel that connection with Bharata growing up because we just go to people's homes in India and then
Mhm.
come back.
Yeah.
Connection wasn't there. It was only after becoming a brahmachari
Mhm.
and taking yatras with Swami Sarveshanand whether it's going through coastal Karnataka
Mhm.
and seeing temples there, whether it's after my brahmachari training course,
Mhm.
going to Rishikesh, Haridwar,
Mhm.
Gangotri, all these places. That really made me feel that connection.
Mhm.
A connection that in the big cities, it feels so westernized.
Yeah.
I don't feel it,
Mhm.
but that's what, something like 70% of the country,
Mhm.
of the population that's in
Mhm.
it. So heritage is also something that, not to sound pessimistic, but it is slipping away in a way.
Mhm.
And finally, media and politics. We covered
Mhm.
politics a little bit.
Yeah.
Media.
Mhm.
How does that influence our Hindu identity?
Like I said, like it's the same thing for me. It's just you don't want to be canceled. You don't want to be seen a certain way if you are proudly saying that I'm a Hindu or I support something like the Ram Mandir. If you support that, that means you must be against this. There's no you cannot be both. I think that's
Part
what
of
social
identity
media
is
portrays.
picking a side, however.
Yeah.
That is a big part of identity.
Mhm.
Does that mean Hinduism has to be exclusive to some other ideals? What is it like?
I think that's how social media sees it. I don't think that's how it is, but if you pick a side, then that means that you're not on this side, and then that means that you're excluding a certain group of people.
I don't have the blessing and bhagya of being on social media,
Mm-hmm.
unlike luminaries like yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you see there in terms of
It's
picking a
like
side or Hinduism there?
if you support this, if you support, for example, the Ram Mandir, that automatically means that you must be against some other group of people.
Mm.
It means that you are compassionate about one group and you don't care about this. So there's no, you cannot be both. It's either you pick a side and then you get canceled for not being on the other side. That's how it always is.
So we've seen with these silent elements,
Mhm.
pretty complicated.
Mhm.
To have a Hindu identity
Mhm.
for our generation going forward,
Mhm.
what are those elements that we can rely on and say, this we have with us, therefore Hindu identity will be strong? Like, for example, language is not one of
Mhm.
those things.
Mhm.
I see friends that are having kids now,
Mhm.
and not just friends who are of two different languages, like a
Mhm.
Telugu person marrying a Punjabi, not even like that.
Mhm.
I'm talking Marathi, Tamilian.
Mhm.
They don't pass on the language to their kids.
Mhm.
Because we think in English, we speak
Yeah.
in English.
Mhm.
Language will not be passed down.
Okay.
That is just a fact.
Mhm.
All right, for second generation and going forward, it
Mhm.
won't be. But like that, what are some elements that we will retain, do you think?
Celebration, definitely.
Okay.
I think that's something we will retain. A lot of, I think, Chinmay Mission we will retain, like sending our kids to Balvihar, Chik. That I feel like is something solid that we will retain.
I was naive about that. I thought that,
Mhm.
okay, if someone's a graduate and they're having kids, of course they'll send their kids to Balvihar. What I'm seeing a trend of
Mhm.
is they'll have their kids 5, 6, 7 years old.
Uh-huh.
They still won't. The
Mhm.
grandparents are the ones that say, okay, I'll take your kid to Balvihar then. And then they're the ones that bring their grandkids to Balvihar.
Mm.
Several families I can point to like that,
Mhm.
where that's happening. So I don't know if it was my own naivety that I thought that, okay, just because someone's a graduate, they'll bring their
Maybe
kids, of
I
course.
would.
I
Yeah.
would too. I mean, that's a
Yeah.
natural thing we think would happen.
Mm-hmm.
The importance just isn't really there, though,
Mm-hmm.
of that Hindu connection. I'm not just
Yeah.
saying Chinmaya Mission. I'm saying across the
Across,
board,
yeah.
any kind of Hindu institution that they've grown up in,
Mm-hmm.
there's a kind of distancing from that in a
Mhm.
way. That also seems to happen. So celebrations,
Mhm.
that's something we'll retain.
Mm-hmm.
What else that you're for sure that we will retain as part of our identity?
Personally, I think I would definitely retain language.
Yeah.
I don't see. I mean, I get it because grandparents speak English these days, so you don't really need to retain that.
But you speak
Mhm.
Marathi.
Yeah.
And you're Hindi as well.
Mm-hmm.
You and your husband, I've seen you speak in Hindi to each other almost
Mhm.
exclusively, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's going to retain and your kids are going to pick up on that?
Definitely.
But once they start going to school, isn't that going to
Well,
dissipate?
that's what we had. We had to speak Marathi at home. So it was just my mom wouldn't reply to us.
Just wouldn't reply to you at all?
Just would not talk to us.
Was that frustrating?
No, because that just meant we had to learn. I guess in that moment it was, but now looking back at it, I'm really grateful because we get to communicate with our grandparents, with everyone else that speaks Marathi. We don't feel excluded when we go back home.
So do you see you and your husband doing that with your kids? If they don't speak in Hindi with you, you just don't respond?
Probably. I think I would. I don't know about him, but I would.
I'll be around. I'll see what
Okay.
happens.
Mhm.
Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Bet.
Bet.
All right, so that's language.
Mhm.
What else?
Clothing,
Okay.
how we dress. I think we're not.
Dude, I go to weddings
Yeah.
when I have to go to
Mhm.
weddings. It's not
That's what I was gonna
not
say,
the
modesty,
way we
but I-
dress. That's not the way we
I
dress,
was
man.
gonna say modesty, but I don't think so.
Now, I sound like a old
Yeah.
person when I'm saying all this.
Mhm.
I don't know, man.
The wedding lehengas and everything now, where they're cut out and you wear like a bra looking thing.
Bollywood tells us how to dress. That's what
Yeah.
it is, and that's not what our Sanskriti is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even for men. For men, I'm going to say
Yeah.
the same thing. It's really not what our Sanskriti is. Clothing has totally taken a different turn.
This is getting more and more difficult now.
I know. See?
Clothing, food, cooking. Yes,
Food?
food at home for
Okay.
sure. Yeah, we don't order takeout every day. We cook, so I think that's definitely something we're.
Hey, when we order
maintaining.
takeout, we order Indian food.
order
Chaat
Indian
cafe.
takeout,
All right.
yes. Yeah.
Paneer, not taco. What was it? Paneer wrap.
Paneer wrap.
Velvet tacos where we get the
Velvet
paneer
taco,
taco.
paneer, yeah.
Right? See?
So
Sanskriti even
There we
when
go. Food.
food. Okay, that's going to stay.
What are some other elements?
There's something like 80 Indian restaurants in the DFW area.
No, there's gonna be way more than that.
That's what I read in a recent article.
Maybe no, because that doesn't include like McKinney, Little
Yeah.
Elm, way more than.
As you said that statement, 2 more restaurants popped up somewhere here.
Yeah.
Because of food. What else?
Food, clothing. You know what? This is weird, but home decor
Okay.
or like having an altar at home. That's something I would definitely
So
retain.
immaterial of doing anything to that altar, but just having the altar at home.
Having the altar at home.
Wow.
And keeping that, I don't know how to say it, like Indian home decor that we had growing up. We had like Ganesha, like murals and things like. I would keep that.
Okay. So
That's
decor,
Yeah,
food,
food.
language,
Mhm.
celebrations.
Mm-hmm.
Is this enough to retain a strong Hindu identity for our generation as we enter adulthood?
For our generation, it depends.
Okay.
It really depends on how you grew up and how much you want to retain, how much you associate with social media, what's going on at the moment.
That's something else. The wanting to retain part.
Yeah.
That who is to say the barometer of what being a Hindu is?
Yeah.
I decide what being a Hindu is.
Mhm.
So what is being a Hindu then, in your opinion?
Retaining the culture. I think religion, understanding religion, but for me, it's mainly
Now,
retaining.
there's the part
our
I get to annoy
traditions.
you because I get to
Yeah.
dig deep into this.
Uh-huh.
Retaining the culture. What does that mean?
Like the food, the celebrations, keeping those things alive so we don't forget them.
And that's being a Hindu?
Mm-hmm.
Because there's
Part
like
of
so many
it.
different definitions we can look into this. Like there's the subjective definition
Mm-hmm.
of someone that's practicing.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, you get 10 Hindus in a room,
Mm-hmm.
you'll have 10 or 11 different opinions on what it means to be a Hindu.
Mm-hmm.
Some people say unless you do your daily sadhana of
Mhm.
some kind of puja patha,
Mhm.
that's not Hindu,
Yeah.
right? Or some people say that unless you know
Mhm.
some of the philosophy, you're just blind faith, that's not being a Hindu. There's
Mhm.
different opinions like this.
Mhm.
In 2016, my
Mhm.
family took a temple tour in Tamil Nadu.
Mhm.
We were at the Meenakshi temple,
Mhm.
one of the most beautiful temples in the world.
Mhm.
There's a long line that they're waiting in,
Mhm.
and I'm with my dad, and then there's a sign near the
Mhm.
door. No entry for non-Hindus is what it says.
Mm.
Okay? No entry for non-Hindus.
Mhm.
So I had time to talk. So I was like with my dad, how do you tell who a Hindu is and non-Hindu is?
Mm.
Because you can't do it by appearance.
Yeah.
I know plenty of Caucasians who are strong Hindus.
Mhm.
At the same time, okay, there's no card that says, okay, name, height, weight,
Yeah.
eyes, bro, brown eyes is bro, right? It says
Yeah.
on your license.
Mhm.
And then designation Hindu, there's no
Mhm.
religious designation like that.
Mhm.
Okay, you can ask them to chant a mantra.
Mhm.
That proves that they're Hindu.
Mm.
We have so many sampradayas, man. There is no one mantra universal to everyone that they chant as part of their lineage. That's not how it is.
Mhm.
How do you determine then who is Hindu or not Hindu?
I guess because there's no official like conversion, you can't really convert. So anyone who identifies can technically say that yes, I am Hindu because you practice or you feel Hindu.
Is it a strength or a weakness of our religion?
I think it's a strength
Okay, why?
because we allow so many people to practice. There's no one strict way to say this is what you have to do and this is what you cannot do. It's something that molds, it changes to the way society changes or the way that we grow and we modernize.
But then don't we fall into the trap of if anyone is a Hindu, then no one is a Hindu? It's
Yeah.
easy to fall into that.
Yeah.
So then, okay, academic definition then, or a scholarly definition.
Mhm.
I think one of the greatest Indians who's ever lived,
Mhm.
Veer Savarkarji.
Mhm.
Okay, in his writings, he defined what a Hindu is in 3 different ways.
Mhm.
He said Jati,
Mhm.
Rashtra,
Mhm.
Samskara.
Okay.
These 3 things.
Mhm.
Jati is the lineage,
Mhm.
your bloodline that goes. That's one feature of defining a Hindu.
Mhm.
And the objection could come that, okay, are you saying that those in what was previously Bharatavarsha in
Mhm.
today's day and age,
Mhm.
those who are Muslim, Jain, Sikh,
Mhm.
Christian, are these also Hindus? He would say, yeah. That
Yeah.
somewhere along the way their ancestors were forcibly or by their own choice converted,
Mhm.
but that Jati still remains. In this
Mhm.
case, Jati meaning that bloodline.
Mhm.
Therefore, they are under that Hindu umbrella.
Yeah.
Second part after Jati is Rashtra.
Mhm.
If you consider Bharatavarsha
Mhm.
to be the Pitrubhumi, meaning fatherland,
Mhm.
and Punyabhumi,
Mhm.
meaning the genesis of the religion,
Mhm.
then you are a Hindu.
Okay.
So that land and reverence for that land,
Mhm.
where even if you're not from that land,
Mhm.
if you hold that to be the homeland of the Hindus and have reverence there,
Okay.
then you are a Hindu. Because I've
Yeah.
talked to so many people who are not born Hindu and they're from different races.
Mhm.
At the end of the day, they say for that true connection to Hinduism,
Mhm.
they had to take a pilgrimage or yatra in Bharata.
Okay.
And like you did last year or
Yes.
a year ago, 2 years ago or
A
so,
year ago.
right? So many
Yeah.
Caucasian bhaktas joined on
Mhm.
there. That is that connection that truly comes
Mhm.
when they visit.
Yeah.
Third part is the samskriti,
Mhm.
sanskara.
Mhm.
That even if I'm not in the bloodline of Jati, of Hindus, if my Rashtra, I have no connection to Bharata,
Mhm.
but I believe in the values
Yeah.
and the dharma
Mhm.
of what the Hindu ideals are,
Mhm.
then I'm a Hindu.
Mhm.
See how expansive that definition
Yeah.
is?
Mhm.
How so inclusive, but there's an accountability
Mhm.
that you have to believe in what these Hindu ideals are
Mhm.
to really be a Hindu.
Yeah. Mhm.
Given that definition, that broadens it some more.
Mhm.
Still doesn't help us in this conversation,
Yeah.
though. I still haven't added anything to this conversation here.
Mhm.
What is it that we have to hold on to remain Hindu going forward?
Those values, right?
What are those values then?
That's for you to define.
If we look at Puja Gurudev's self-unfoldment, then a whole chapter on values,
Mhm.
he says any of these values that we look at in our Hindu pantheon can be boiled down to 3 values.
Mhm.
Satyam,
Mhm.
Ahimsa, Brahmacharya.
Mhm.
Satyam is that devotion to the truth. Not just speaking truthfulness and straying from lies and deceit,
Mhm.
but pursuing that truth, which is the essence of the Hindu religion,
Okay.
of my identity as I am Brahman.
Mhm.
And to that level, also truth.
Mhm.
Brahmacharya,
Mhm.
not just continence or abstinence in the sexual sense,
Mhm.
but all my sense organs and organs of perception and organs of action, do I have them reined in and controlled?
Mhm.
Brahmacharya,
Okay.
that way. Ahimsa,
Mhm.
non injury.
Mhm.
Not just an action and physically violent, verbally, even thoughts of himsa are wrong.
Okay.
Up to that point.
Mm-hmm.
He says any other value that you can point to,
Mm-hmm.
honesty or loyalty or humility, any of these are simply derivatives of satyam, ahimsa, brahmacharya, this value system. Is adherence to this enough to build that Hindu identity?
No.
Okay. Why not?
Because how do you? I mean, how would you know? Like, how do you?
Because these values could belong to anything. It's not
Exactly. Yeah.
specific, just that, okay, I'm seeking truth. Then that's not purely Hindu
Yeah.
that way. Puja Gurudev says this has to be supplemented with a doing of Hinduness as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sadhana is one big tenet of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we stray from sadhana, and we're seeing the challenges. We try to do this sadhana challenge as part of the Chik 50-year celebrations, but we find that it's a chore to have to keep the mind on sadhana even.
Yeah.
So doing Hinduism, much more important than simply knowing Hinduism. Because I can regurgitate vasanas and what rebirth and the law of karma, all of this. What does that mean to keep me Hindu once I get out of Balvihar, though? There has to be a doing element. Preservation has to be there as well. How do we make that happen for our generation?
They have to want to do it. I think it's really hard to make someone, if they don't see the meaning behind it, if they don't see the deeper connection to it, I guess.
But there's so many things we do, Tanvi, without seeing the deeper meaning of it or caring about it even. What is the deeper meaning of putting a ring on someone and saying, now you're mine to be wed to me?
It looks good.
It looks good. That's all it is.
Yeah.
What is the deeper meaning of, you even shaking someone's hand?
Yeah.
We go and we shake someone's hand when we meet them. What's the meaning of that? Do we know?
That's just a cultural practice.
That derived from?
Western culture.
Where in the Middle Ages, to make sure the other guy doesn't have a weapon on him, you would grab his wrist and shake it so that something would fall out of the sleeve. From there, we've come to just clasping hands and then shaking for a little bit. So these things we don't know yet, we just do, is my point. Knowing the deeper meaning, that curiosity is not there. Okay, we do things to avoid the adverse effects. I go to the gym so that I don't have clogged arteries, right? I should, so that I don't have clogged arteries. That's to avoid some adverse effect. Do we believe that not doing Hinduism has some adverse effect?
No. And that's why we don't do it.
So what is that's going to inspire then?
The consequences.
What are those consequences?
I don't know. It's really tough. It's really hard with where, like I said, social media, it's just not a cool thing to do, so we don't do it.
Like when I was growing up, we bought our second house, meaning we moved out of the first house and moved to a larger house when I was a teenager. And we'd find the perfect neighborhood, good school system that matters to us a lot, and it would be a nice, safe area. But the vastu would not check out, where it was facing the wrong direction or this or that, and we'd say no to the house. Yeah. And I asked my dad, I thought I was being logical when I said this. I said, look, all the other people in this neighborhood, the white people, they don't look at houses based on vastu. They move in and they're fine. It's not like their thing goes to ruin or anything like that. They're fine. Why are we so hung up on this? So it's little things like that where we disregard parts of the culture because we find ourselves in a place where it's not really practiced. What's the bad things that can happen from it? That doesn't compute. Yeah. What's the way around that then? Where when we don't understand certain practices, to still keep them alive and still do them, when we don't see the adverse effects of not doing them, how do we keep that alive?
Desire to really learn what they mean and what they signify, right? Because you can't just do something without understanding.
Where can we learn that then?
Asking. I guess just asking someone who's more knowledgeable and really knowing, because it's something we still do.
Which I think that's the role of the mission that we have to take up. Yeah. It's the responsibility of the institution then to make these things relevant. Yeah. In all aspects of daily life, how can Hinduism be relevant to you? It's up to the spiritual institutions now to take that up. That's one thing I'm trying to explore. More for knowledge for myself to be a better Hindu, but in the position that I am to really show others what that means as well. That's a great place to start, I think. Yeah. I have a surprise for you.
Okay.
See the box right there?
Mhm.
You thought it was just a furniture piece?
Yeah.
So this box is one thing that Swamiji left me. It has Gurudev's Om on it right here. So nice and merchandised. Right here, I have some random slips of paper in there. You're going to take them out one at a time,
Okay.
open it up and read it, and let's
Okay.
see if we can answer it together.
Okay.
And you didn't know anything about this, did you?
No.
Nothing at all. I didn't tell her anything.
I was gonna put my lip gloss in there.
You're going to put your lip gloss in. Terrible.
Okay.
Clear into the mic.
Do I feel I will ever know enough about my religion?
You never feel like you know enough about your religion?
Mm-mm.
Isn't that a sign of insecurity?
For sure. I don't think a lot of the questions I'd be able to just answer off the top of my mind. Like, why do we do this? Why do we do that? Like, I don't know.
Well, then it's for some external reason then, to like explain to someone else? Or
Yeah.
is it okay to never know enough about my religion?
There's only so much you can ask, I guess, or only so much you can.
I guess at what point would you feel comfortable saying, okay, I know this much, I'm happy knowing this much?
Not where I'm at now. I don't know where that point is.
Because if knowledge and growth
Mhm.
comes from knowing more,
Mm-hmm.
then that should never stop.
Mm-hmm.
We should never be a point where we're complacent and we're happy saying, okay, I know this much, I'm good.
Yeah.
Hinduism is all about diving deeper and knowing more. Not Shastravasana in the sense of knowing just for the sake of knowing,
Yeah.
but something that can address my vasanas
Mhm.
and help me on this path even more.
Mhm.
That's the humility that we have
Yeah.
in Sanatana Dharma.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next piece of paper.
How do I strike a balance between my Western side and Indian side? Hanging out with the right group of people, people that value your culture, people that want to do more, I think is a big part of it. And then your own desire. You have to want to encourage or want to actually be proud of that side. If you really want to be whitewashed, it's really easy to do that.
So you said hanging out with the right
Mhm.
people. What does that mean?
People who have good cultural values. I think for me, I never really found it comfortable just hanging around white people. I had to have some Indian friends, people who understand the culture. Like, they understand, oh, yeah, I know why you can't leave the house at 11 p.m.
Yeah.
And that keeps it alive, that relatability with other kids.
But for me growing up,
Mm-hmm.
hanging out with my Indian friends,
Mm-hmm.
it's not like the tenor of our conversations were different than me talking to my white friends.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't like we did different things.
Mhm.
It wasn't like Indian-centric things
Mhm.
that we did. But there was this unsaid understanding
Yeah,
of different things that was there.
Yeah.
And that gave some comfort.
Mm-hmm.
You know, little things like you said,
Yeah.
not hanging out late with
Yeah.
friends and them
Mhm.
understanding that. Or the fact that when it comes time to prom,
Mm-hmm.
making it so clear that, okay, no, they're just friends that we're going with like that.
Yeah.
They get it.
Yeah.
They just really do get it.
Mhm.
And that adds a layer of comfort there.
Yeah.
Want to take one more?
Is it okay to be Hindu by birth, or should there be a ceremonial moment my choosing to be Hindu?
Like how in some traditions, the baptism or something.
Mhm.
Should there be something that, okay, this makes me a Hindu? Or is it just from birth? I'm a Hindu.
I like that there's no strict set conversion, because it's not really a religion. I feel it's just more like just part of your life every day. It's a way of life more than it is like a religion or something that you have to do 5 times a day. It's complicated, but I think no.
But we're finding in our generation that's not being done.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
These measures were put in place in the religions to clearly mark that, okay, you've embarked on this religion now.
Mhm.
For us, it's just we hope through osmosis.
Mhm.
And that might have been true for a different generation
Mhm.
living in a different land. For our generation in the West, is there something more that's needed? Something more official?
But who would decide that, or who would
That's the thing.
make that up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it would seem like it's straying from traditional
Yeah.
way of practicing,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Like, I'll tell you my journey.
Mm-hmm.
In high school, I was a hardcore atheist.
Mm-hmm.
Like 11th and 12th grade, I didn't believe in anything.
Mm-hmm.
and it was a struggle. 12th grade, I skipped like 8 straight weeks of Balvihar.
Mm.
It's so funny that I'm saying that. Like, as a
Yeah.
brahmachari, it's like, dude, you're supposed. That's why when parents and teachers, they tell me to talk to their kids
Mhm.
because their kids don't want to come to Balvihar in high school, and invariably they'll be like, yeah, look at Hariji. He's brahmachari now. He must have gone to Balvihar every single week, and I'm like, actually,
Ooh,
dude,
no.
not really.
Mhm.
I skipped 2 whole months straight in
Mhm.
12th grade.
Mhm.
It was only because of Swami Sarveshananji's insistence that I
Mhm.
attended more and graduated. Like,
Yeah.
I owe him everything.
Mhm.
And in college, the first year or so, I just didn't feel any connection as well.
Mhm.
It was after attending the youth empowerment program where I was like, man, I'm deciding I want to be a Hindu now. I am a Hindu.
Mm.
That was a big change. Where that was because scriptural study was there and I understood what the deeper meaning of our religion is.
Mhm.
All those misconceptions I had brought on by improper media,
Yeah.
brought on by improper study,
Mhm.
all of that was addressed. And that was a big turning point at the age of 20.
Mhm.
So there was no official kind of ceremony or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Mhm.
That kind of initiation, something like that, has to spark that change where, okay, I am a Hindu. And I've talked to so many adults also that whether it's at a certain point taking this more seriously and cutting out bad habits,
Yeah.
or not worrying about what their social ladder is
Mhm.
and really focusing
Mhm.
on leading a more spiritual life
Mhm.
deliberately, I would say those are those moments of change as well.
Mm.
Do you feel like a Hindu has to go through that?
That all comes from within. There's no ceremony that we can put in place. Like,
One more?
is Indianness necessary for Hinduness?
Mm,
No,
okay.
no. Based on the people that I've met and this yatra that I went on, obviously, no, I don't think so. Respect for the culture is one thing, but you don't need to be like Indian to have these values of respect and be able to cherish the religion.
This may be controversial.
Uh-huh.
I don't think someone can understand the essence of Hinduness
Mm-hmm.
without understanding the essence of Indianness.
Okay.
Not being, but at least
Mhm.
understanding fully.
Is it
What
understanding?
is.
It just says is Indianness.
My questions aren't that smart. The podcast is where we get smart with
Okay.
it,
Mhm.
hopefully.
Mm.
Would you agree with that then?
Yeah.
Understanding part of it?
Understanding, yes, yeah. But is Indianness? I don't know. What does that mean?
Okay, can we separate Indianness from Hinduness?
No.
Then doesn't that mean Indianness is necessary for Hinduness?
But I thought I took this more as, do you kind of have to practice Indian things?
Hmm.
Which-
What's practicing Indian things?
language, like those kind of things that we talked about. I don't think so. I think you can still,
You have to sing Jana Gana Mana once a day at least,
yeah.
like that.
I
Okay.
think you can still be Hindu. You can still cherish like the values, the religion, like the spirituality, what it teaches you without necessarily doing other things.
I feel like for other religions, you can exist in a silo away from the genesis of the religion
Mhm.
of that country
Mhm.
and still practice it.
Mhm.
Whether it's praying in a certain direction for a certain number of times a day,
Mhm.
these are mechanisms put in place to readily welcome those that have an outside perspective.
Mhm.
Hinduism, I feel like, from the emphasis put on language
Mhm.
in our very rituals, or like the katha that goes on during a puja, for
Yeah.
instance, right?
Mhm.
All the way till the food habits,
Mhm.
all the way till the symbolism associated with location.
Mhm.
There's really no way that without that Indian context,
Mhm.
Hinduism is really hard to come to terms with there.
Okay.
I just feel that's one really big distinction.
Yeah.
Final one?
Okay. Big one. What is the genesis of my pride in being a Hindu? Is it inherent pride in the religion and culture, or only when they're externally validated?
We kind of touched on
We
this.
kind of touched on this. I got another one.
That's it.
That's the last one.
Oh, there's one
There's
more?
one more.
Oops.
Does my Western upbringing make me less of a Hindu? No, because I don't think Eastern upbringing these days is very Hindu. I think they're, in fact, the way they're affected by social media, same as us, but even more so them trying to be more Western, I think.
That's true.
Yeah.
And I once witnessed a conversation between two gentlemen that
Uh-huh.
really just shook me up.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes you see or hear something, you don't sleep that night because
Yeah.
it's just you're thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
It was a man talking to one of his good friends,
Mm-hmm.
And he says, I want to put my daughter in a private school because she's getting into high school
Mhm.
now. And the public schools, the teacher to student ratio is too high, not
Mhm.
enough opportunities. Plus, you go to a private school, you're more of a likelihood to go to an Ivy League school
Uh-huh.
because that matters a lot to
Yeah.
us. All of these things.
Mhm.
But his hangup was that lots of these private schools in the area are all Christian based schools.
Okay.
I want my kid to go to a Hindu centric school,
Yeah.
is what he was saying.
Okay.
Okay. Or not even I want my kid to go to a Hindu centric school, just
Mhm.
that I don't want that Christian influence there so
Mhm.
much. But the other man
Mhm.
replied to him just
Mhm.
very straightforwardly,
Mhm.
if you were so worried about your kid not having that Hindu exposure,
Mhm.
you wouldn't have raised your kid in America. You would have stayed home in India. Can you see why that hit me?
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
I think that's a big concern that like our parents had as well. But looking at it now, my cousins, the way that I see people that grow up in India on social media, it's in fact worse than like how we grew up here. They hang out with, we were never allowed to hang out with boys, and they do that. They go to the mall, they hang out. Like there's no that strictness, I guess, or those Indian values that they're so talking about don't really exist there. They're more here because our parents feel kind of overcompensate in a way.
Is that just in the silos that we live in? Because the family members that I
Mhm.
have that grew up in the villages, like
Mhm.
cousins my age that grew up in the village,
Mhm.
their sense of Samskriti in that compass is dead on. It's amazing to see.
Mhm.
And those cousins have moved here now, and to
Mhm.
observe them, I'm really inspired by
Mhm.
that. It's kind of like a what's our perception
Yeah.
and what our experiences are,
Mhm.
but you don't think we're inherently at a loss because we grew up here when it comes to being Hindu?
Nowadays, I don't think so. Just the way I've seen cousins of a similar age growing up in India, I think we were actually better off here.
Historically speaking, you look at any major religion in the world.
Mhm.
The more generations there are growing up away from the homeland,
Mhm.
the more diluted the religion is.
Okay.
And maybe one generation overcompensates
Mhm.
and really keeps these values alive more than some people in the home country would of the
Mhm.
same family.
Mhm.
But over time, it does rust, so to
Yeah.
speak, and get away from what the original intentionality is.
Mhm.
Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Mhm.
You look at the West Indies,
Mhm.
Trinidad and Tobago,
Mhm.
Guyana, all these areas,
Yeah.
where Sanjanaji did her course there. So her insight into these areas about how the Hindus are is really deep.
Mhm.
Where they moved there, were forced to move there,
Yeah.
indentured servitude,
Mhm.
more than 600 to 800 years ago.
Mhm.
But you look at how they live,
Mhm.
not 600 to 800, I'm sorry. It was about like
Less than
17
that.
or 1800s, less than
Yeah.
that, but still enough generations.
Mhm.
The Hinduism they practice
Mhm.
is unrecognizable to us here.
Yeah.
But the pride is there,
Mhm.
and that connection is still there.
Mhm.
So it may look different to someone who's from Bharat, seeing how it's practiced, but you can't say that they're not Hindu
Yeah.
because those ideals still are there.
Mhm.
That's what we can hope to hold on to. And my final question for you today is within CHIC, then,
Mhm.
Chinmaya Yuva Kendra in this country as a unit,
Mhm.
what are those elements that we can emphasize more to keep and retain and strengthen this Hindu identity for our membership?
I think continuing to doing what we're doing. We have these celebrations that we do, we have festivals that we celebrate, but getting to know it on a deeper level. We don't ever sit and kind of understand. So I think having more times where we can all kind of sit together and understand is something we're really missing.
Okay, so understanding celebrations and understanding why do we do what we do.
Understanding why we do what we do, not just
Okay.
celebrations.
Is there enough of an emphasis on study and understanding the words of our scriptures, or does that have to change at all?
I think it's put in a very fun way with like the sadhana challenge and that, and I think we just need more participation in that. I think there's plenty to do. It's just that internal desire to actually want to do it.
And what about looking at preserving Hinduism for ourselves,
Mhm.
wherever we find ourselves, where it's not parents pushing us to go to these classes,
Mhm.
we're adults as
Mhm.
chicks.
Yeah.
What can be done on that end to make it better?
That's again really hard because of politics and where everyone stands politically. Not everyone wants to be part of preservation because they don't see it as the right thing to do.
Without preserving, though, it dies away.
Yeah.
And that shouldn't be a political thing. That should
Yeah.
be a Hindu thing at the end of the
Mhm.
day.
Mhm.
That it's not based on what others' perceptions are.
Mhm.
If we do not protect this religion and
Mhm.
keep things strong,
Mhm.
it will die away right before our eyes.
Mhm.
And it is happening,
Mhm.
right?
Understanding history from our perspective, because we don't get taught that, and without that, there won't be that desire to actually preserve it.
So that's something I'm researching a lot
Mhm.
nowadays. Decoloniality
Mhm.
and understanding ourselves on our own terms,
Yeah.
not through someone else's
Mhm.
lens. And finding sources like this takes a lot of work.
Mhm.
Putting them in a way that's palatable for chicks to want to take
Yeah.
advantage of, that's also difficult to do.
Mhm.
But I think that's one way we can get there,
Yeah.
looking at it through a decolonial lens.
Mhm.